When I think of servanthood, two passages come to mind right off the bat. One passage is when Jesus, speaking of himself, he says, "The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve." And it seems to me that Jesus is saying is that part of my identity is I'm going to be a person who gives, be a person who serves, and it stands to reason to me that as his disciple, as his follower, then that ought to define me as well. A second passage that comes to mind is in Matthew chapter 25, where Jesus is telling a series of parables about the final judgment. And one of those parables that's familiar to you is when the master separates the sheep from the goats, and the sheep are the good guys that are going to be welcomed into his kingdom, and the goats are going to be dismissed from his kingdom. But the distinguishing factor between the good and the bad is the fact that the sheep did these simple acts of service. They saw someone who was thirsty and gave him something to drink, saw someone who was hungry and gave him something to eat, someone in prison, someone without any clothes, and that parable just seems to emphasize to me how important God places, the importance that God places on us being servants. And once again, that ought to define who I am. And not only should it define just who I am, but I think it should define what the church is. I really would like to see the Park Avenue Church of Christ be known for being servant-minded, for helping people, to reaching out to the needs of other people. And that's why I get so excited about the pantry drive, and so excited about Be a Blessing Sunday, where we reach out and we help people who are serving in the homeless shelters and the children's homes and Habitat for Humanity, Air Chapel, things like that, because I really believe that should define us as it defined Jesus, that we are servants. When I think of an individual that stands as an example to me as a servant, I think of Harry Corbett. Harry has passed away several years ago, but his wife still attends here, Barbara. When I first came to Park Avenue, Harry worked in the benevolence ministry, and in fact he was the benevolence ministry. And every day, mid-afternoon, Harry would call up here at the church and ask if anyone had called needing food. And in many cases, someone had called, and Harry would come up joyfully every time he needed to, and put some bags of groceries together, run to the store, and deliver these groceries to people. And I can't even imagine how many people Harry served through that ministry. When Harry passed away, I preached his funeral and used that parable from Matthew chapter 25. And made reference to those words of commendation that the master has to the sheep. And you know those words. He says, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And so Harry just demonstrated that quality in his life. I'm not always living up to that standard that Jesus has set to be a servant, but recently I had an opportunity to serve someone, and I was at home after work, and it was even during dinner time, and my cell phone rang, and it was from an unknown number, and so I picked it up, and it was a man who had called, who had got my number off the answering machine here at church. If you call up at church and no one answers, you get a series of prompts, and you can press a certain number to get my voicemail, and I leave my cell phone number on there also if it's an emergency. So this guy starts rambling on and on about having some type of need. He's at a hotel in Sherman. He just got out of prison in McAlester, Oklahoma, and is on his way down to Dallas and made it as far as Sherman. Somehow he managed to get a room rented for him at the Days Inn in Sherman, and it was calling churches in Sherman, had no luck, and so he needed something to eat, hadn't eaten all day, and he needed to wash his clothes. And I was feeling really put out by this guy calling me at home, and so I took his phone number, and I told him I'd see what I could do, and so I was telling Henry Ann about it, and she said, "Well, you know, it wouldn't be too big of a deal to bring him a pizza. We live right by Little Caesars there on Morton Street, and you can get a pizza for $5." And so she encouraged me to do that, and she filled up a Ziploc baggie full of detergent for him to do his laundry, and brought him $5. And so I went down with Melanie and my daughter with me. I have this fear that when I meet strange people that somehow they're going to kill me, and I don't know exactly what Melanie was going to do, but I thought at least if someone was going to maul another man that he would be less likely to do that if his daughter was there watching. I don't know, but so Melanie and I drove down to the Days Inn in Sherman at 75 and 1417. Met this fellow in the hall and gave him the pizza and the detergent and the $5, and he was real grateful. And I'm not sure if that's going to make a big difference in his life, but I wanted him to know that someone cared about him, and maybe if he saw that I cared about him, then maybe he could believe that someone more important than me believed in him and cared about him as well. You know, there's a song that we sing occasionally that I think would be wise for us to live by. The lyrics of that song, it's make me a servant, Lord, make me like you, for you are a servant, make me one too.